Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. وصلوات الله وسلامه على خاتم النبيين وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين وعلى أزواجه أمهات المؤمنين وعلى أصحابه أجمعين وعلى التابعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين وعلينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. Brothers, sisters, welcome to this lecture tonight and to our online viewers as well. Thank you all for joining in. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Now, tonight we are dealing with Islam, the message of the Quran to the world. And in tonight's lecture, I want to continue from last night where we began to deal with Jesus in the Quran and see how he is represented. Tonight, I will continue that general discussion on Jesus, on whom be peace, as he's represented in the Quran. So in tonight's discussion, what remains about Jesus, I think, are basically three issues to discuss. One is his attitude towards the law. Two, the question of his eventual end. Three, the statement that after him will come another prophet. So let me deal with these issues. First, about his attitude towards the law. In the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al Imran that Isa alayhi salam announced to the people that he has come وَمُصَدِّقًا لِمَا بَيْنَ يَدَيَّ مِنَ التَّوْرَاةِ وَلِيُحِلَّ لَكُمْ بَعْضَ الَّذِي حُرِّمَ عَلَيْكُمْ. And I have come confirming that which has been before me of the Torah, and to make permissible for you some of that which was previously made unlawful. Now, within the Quranic perspective, what this is referring to is that previously the people of Israel had certain rules. Some were given as commandments from Allah Azza wa Jal, but some of it is what they had adopted for themselves. They had, through their recalcitrance, had adopted additional laws, and God is saying that He also has sanctioned that as the status quo. Now they have this law, they have to abide by it. It could be also that because of their repeated questioning, they got more laws. So they asked, and then they got the answer. They asked more, they got the answer. All of these answers became a law for them. So now they had laws prohibiting many things, and now Isa alayhi salam comes and he declares that some of what they had previously known to be forbidden is now permissible for them. So that's the statement, وَلِيُحِلَّ لَكُمْ بَعْضَ الَّذِي حُرِّمَ عَلَيْكُمْ. And then he says, وَجِئْتُكُمْ بِآيَةٍ مِّن رَبِّكُمْ فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَأَطِيعُونَ. So I have come to you with a sign from your Lord, so fear Allah and obey me, or know of your duty and your obligation towards Allah, and you should follow me. So from this Quranic perspective then, Isa alayhi salam did not cancel all of the law, but he made some of it permissible, which previously was made impermissible for the people of Israel. And this now fits in with the general idea of the Quran, that there are laws to be followed, there are important regulations from God, and His commandments which must be obeyed. Now, what is the situation in the Bible? In the Bible, a similar situation prevails in that it is very clear that there are laws to be obeyed. In the Old Testament, there is what is known as the Ten Commandments, and there are more altogether 613 commandments in the Old Testament. So even if one were to say, okay, not all of those commandments are still valid, at least one would expect that the 10 commandments are still valid, because these are important enough that God had written them on 2 stone tablets and given them to Musa alayhi salam according to the Bible. Now, one of them is the Sabbath rule, to observe the Sabbath, and neither Christians nor Muslims observe the Sabbath today. Muslims instead observe Friday, and Christians have turned towards Sunday as a day of the week that is usually the day in which people attend church, they go and they engage in worship, they suspend work. So Jews remain observing Saturday, Christians observe Sunday, and Muslims came on the scene and they observe Friday. Now the Muslim excuse, if you will, why do we not observe Saturday, is because we follow the Quran, which mentions Yawm al-Jum'ah. The 62nd chapter of the Quran mentions the day of Jum'ah and the prayer, and it says, وَإِذَا نُودِيَ لِلصَّلَاةِ مِنْ يَوْمِ الْجُمْعَةِ فَاسْعَوْا إِلَى ذِكْرِ اللَّهِ وَذَرُوا الْبَيْعَ. When the call is made for prayer on Friday, you should hasten towards the remembrance of Allah and leave off trading. So that's why Muslims observe Friday. And then Friday is not observed as a Sabbath in the way in which our Jewish friends observe their Sabbath, because Muslims are allowed to work. In fact, it seems to be presumed that you will be at work in the morning, you'll be busy with your trade, and then you hear the call for prayer, you suspend your trade, and then فَإِذَا قُضِيَتِ الصَّلَاةِ, and when the salah is over, فَانْتَشِرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ, then spread out in the land, وَابْتَغُوا مِنْ فَضْلِ اللَّهِ, and seek the bounty of Allah. So it is expected then that you're working before and you can work afterwards. Both before and after, you can be out seeking the bounty of Allah through trade and business and work and so on. So we're not prevented from work, but we're enjoined to come and join the prayer at its proper time. Now, if our Christian friends look at this, then they should be asking then, what is our excuse? Okay, why do we not observe the Sabbath? Because the Bible that they're holding actually says, observe the Sabbath, keep it holy. That's the 4th commandment out of the 10. So even if they said that, okay, too many commandments in the Bible, in the Old Testament, you cannot live by all of these commandments, many of them are obsolete, and it is clear that Isa alayhi salam himself may not have followed all of the commandments, then what about the Sabbath? So now this becomes a dilemma, and it means that even the 10 commandments are not being kept altogether, all of them. So if one says, no, we don't even have to follow the 10 commandments. See, that's proof enough. We don't have to follow the 10 commandments. But then the 10 commandments are the most important commandments in the Bible. When Isa alayhi salam was approached, according to Mark's Gospel, in chapter 12, and then it's verse number 29, he's asked of all of the commandments, which is the greatest, and then he says, Hear, O Israel, the Lord your God, the Lord is one. Now that's not technically exactly the wording of the first commandment. That comes from Deuteronomy chapter 6 verse 4. But in spirit, that is exactly the first commandment. There is only one God, the one who is referred to as Yahweh in the Old Testament. So that means that Jesus is affirming the first commandment as the greatest commandment. And then what about things like staying away from thou shalt not commit murder or adultery or steal or give false witness or covet your neighbor's wife. So are you allowed now to do all of these things because the 10 commandments do not apply anymore? So then one has to come back and say, yeah, these are important commandments. All of these commandments still hold. Well then, which commandments hold and which commandments do not hold anymore? It looks like there's a lot of vagueness here and people are not sure. So how did this uncertainty come about? Some think that Isa alayhi salam himself must have cancelled the law and told people you don't have to follow the law anymore. And for that, they may point to Mark's Gospel, where it says that on an occasion, Isa alayhi salam declared all foods clean. It's part of the Jewish regulation coming out of the Old Testament that there is a differentiation between clean and unclean foods, kosher and non-kosher foods. But according to this passage in Mark's Gospel, Jesus declared all foods clean. However, historians think that this is Mark's addition to that narrative. It's not that Jesus himself declared all foods clean, it's just that Mark is putting it that way as his own conclusion. Whereas Matthew, by comparison, having a similar story, he did not conclude that Jesus said or Jesus was teaching that all foods are now clean. The story itself is that Jesus was talking about going to finer details in washing hands and utensils and so on, whereas there are bigger and greater commandments to worry about. So that does not mean that he declared all foods clean. The statement from Jesus that Mark quotes and thinks that this is what it means that Jesus declared all foods clean is Jesus saying, whatever goes into the mouth does not defile a person. What comes out of the mouth is what defiles the person, meaning the foul words and the words of hatred and anger and jealousy and so on. These things actually come from the heart, and these are the things that defile the person, not the things that you put in your mouth. But that's only, like, you see, sometimes you have to differentiate between legality and preaching. In preaching, we talk like this. You might say to a person, well, what's the point of fasting if you're going to lie and cheat and steal? Now, somebody may get the idea. We're saying, okay, so lie, cheat, and steal, and then you don't have to fast. but that's not what we mean. We mean that, brother, if you're going to fast, you have to stop lying, cheating, and stealing. But somebody may take it the other way and say, okay, since I'm lying, cheating, and stealing, okay, Imam said I shouldn't be fasting, so he doesn't fast. All right? So it seems that Mark drew that conclusion incorrectly to say that Jesus declared all foods clean, because he didn't. In fact, it is known by historians that in the early Christian community continued after Jesus, on whom be peace, to differentiate between clean and unclean foods. So if Jesus had declared all foods clean, why would the disciples of Jesus continue to make this distinction between clean and unclean foods? They should have said, look, Jesus declared all foods clean, now everything is clean, everything is halal, everything is kosher. But they're still differentiating between the two, because obviously Jesus had not declared all foods clean. So in Acts of the Apostles, this is a document within the New Testament. The New Testament is comprised of 27 smaller documents. One of the documents is called Acts of the Apostles. This is a kind of history of the disciples of Isa alayhi salam, his sahabas, where they went, where they preached, what they said, and so on. And here in Acts chapter 10, we see that Peter is struggling with this dilemma. Acts chapter 10 and 11, and now Peter sees a dream in which all kinds of things are presented before him, all kinds of animals, and then he is being told, rise, Peter, kill and eat. And then he says, no, I can't. Nothing impure or unclean has ever entered my mouth. Some people take this as an indication that now all foods are declared clean. But no, if that's where all foods are declared clean, then you can't say that Jesus already declared it, because now it's being declared here for the first time. Peter was not aware of this. The story itself actually shows that Peter, up until this time, was still making that differentiation between clean and unclean foods, because he is able to say, nothing impure or unclean has ever entered my mouth. That means he has not been eating non-kosher foods. See? He was living according to the same Old Testament regulations. And now, does this saying itself mean that all foods are declared clean? No. This vision that Peter was being shown in the Acts of the Apostles only meant to show that all people are clean enough that you can go and associate with them to give them the gospel message. Because the case in point here was Peter was struggling to understand, can I go to Cornelius and to the other non-Jewish people and give them the message of Jesus? And whereas the people around him, fellow Jews, would have said, no, you can't associate with these Gentiles in such a close manner, and you can't share table fellowship with them. Here, Peter is being told, no, you can go and associate with them. Never mind the fact that they're Gentiles. Don't make this distinction between Jew and Gentile in this strict manner. And so Peter was being shown this in the vision. He was not being shown that you can eat anything. Who said that all foods are clean? In yesterday's lecture, we mentioned St. Paul. St. Paul, in his letter to the Romans, in chapter 14, verse 20, he declared that all foods are clean. He said, in that same passage, that all foods are clean. And in another document, which is attributed to him, but whose authorship is doubtful, in the book of Ephesians, it is mentioned that Paul said that Jesus canceled all of the law with all of its regulations and commandments. That's Ephesians chapter 2, verses 14 and 15. So Paul is saying here that Jesus canceled all of the law. And now we must ask, is there any evidence that Jesus actually canceled all of the law? And the answer to this seems to be no. On the contrary, it is mentioned in Matthew's Gospel in chapter 5, verses 17 to 19, that Isa alayhi salam said, "Do not think I've come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have not come to abolish, but to fulfill. So that whoever will practice the least one of these laws and teach others to do the same will be called greatest in the kingdom of heaven. And whoever will break the least one of these laws and teach others to do the same will be called least, will be called smallest in the kingdom of heaven." So from this statement, one might conclude that Isa alayhi salam is upholding every law, big and small. But then, if that is the case, how would we understand the ayah which says, وَلِوَحِلَّ لَكُمْ بَعْضَ الَّذِي حُرِّمَ عَلَيْكُمْ وَجِئْتُكُمْ بِآيَةٍ مِّن رَبِّكُمْ فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَأَطِيعُونَ, that I've come to obey, to cancel some of that which was made prohibited for you previously, or relax some of those regulations, make halal for you some of what was previously made haram for you. So why only some? And what would be the explanation for Isa alayhi salam saying, مُصَدِّقًا لِمَا بَيْنَ يَدَيَّ مِنَ التَّوْرَاةِ, I have come to confirm that which was revealed before me of the Torah. So he's come to confirm that, give truth to that. So obviously Islam has here a balanced position in saying that Jesus did not cancel all, but he canceled some of the laws. Now, according to Matthew's position, he didn't cancel anything. All of them, big and small, all remain. But then that would not tie in with other passages in the Gospels where it is evident that Isa alayhi salam is willing to relax some of the law. So the balanced position then is what is there in the Quran. And some Christian scholars feel that Matthew's way of putting Jesus' statement here is actually Matthew's particular way. It is not Jesus' original statement that gives such a strong emphasis on every detail of the previous law. The proper position is known now to be a balanced one between the two extremes. One extreme, you insist on every detail of the law. Another extreme, you throw away the law entirely. The balance in between is to say that some of the laws were abrogated and some of the laws remain firm. And that is the Quranic position about Isa alayhi salam. So that gives clarity. When we speak to our Christian friends, we realize that they are a little bit unclear which laws to follow and which laws not to follow. But for a Muslim, it now becomes clear that we have a law which is there in the Quran. It is a practical law, and it exemplified in the life of our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It is a balance between extremes. That itself is a balance between extremes. It's not too strict and not too loose, but it's practical. So that's the one of the three issues that I wanted to deal with today, Isa alayhi salam's attitude towards the law.